So I just finished The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And before I even get into it, please like and subscribe and follow the channel. But before I get into it, we're going to have to start watching what we classify as a horror movie because it's clearly listed on Hulu as a horror thriller. And this is not a horror movie. And I'm not sure why we keep classifying things as horror movies that are clearly not horror movies. I'm not sure if it's because it's October or whatever the case may be, but that's just my little rant. But anyways, getting to the movie, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle is a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. I would give it a solid 6 out of 10 if I were rating it. But I do think it was a very good movie. And the reason I would say it's a 6 out of 10 is because it is very, very predictable from beginning to end. It is, I guess if you saw the trailer, you saw most of the movie, you kind of know that basically the nanny from hell is going to be terrorizing this woman and her family. And that's basically what the movie was. It was a nanny from hell movie. It was a revenge story of sorts. It's a good movie. It had basically four main characters, one being a child. But the movie basically starts off with Polly, or who's basically one of our main characters, and Caitlin. Polly's at Caitlin's job. She's, at the time, it appears as though she's just applying or trying to figure out something with her housing situation because basically she's about to be homeless. Caitlin's a lawyer. She works for a law firm that does pro bono cases that helps people with their landlords and stuff like that. So she just, throws out there, because Caitlin's obviously pregnant, that, hey, I have experience in the childcare field and it was a long time ago, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We skip. Caitlin eventually has a baby. Then, I would say roughly 10 months to a year later, Caitlin and her family at the market. And who comes back across? Of course, Polly. Hey, didn't know you guys were here. Just happened to be here at the same time at the farmer's market. And even though I don't have anything in my hands and don't seem to be shopping for anything, I just happened to run into you and your family. And I just want to throw out there, hey, if you're ever needing help, Polly's got you. And that's basically how the movie opened. We go down these small twists and turns, everything being good. This is the perfect family. Polly's a great babysitter because she's going to get invited to be the babysitter eventually. We all know that. She's great. She's great with the kids. I can go out and run errands. I don't have to worry about anything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, my husband Miguel is good. And, his parents think that we have the American dream because of reasons that, if you saw the movie. But, I say all that to say that this movie came in slow and, maybe for the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, something like that, it comes in slow, it speeds up, it slows down, it speeds up, it slows down. That's pretty much the pace of the movie, but not to a point where it's going to put you to sleep. But I will say to a point where you're just going to kind of want the next scene to hurry up and happen, because you honestly are going to know what's going to happen the entire time this movie is going. From the time they meet, you already know that. If you saw the trailer, you already know that she's going to be the babysitter. I've never seen the first movie, so I don't know how much of a re-imaging this is. So I don't have any other source material to go off of because I've never seen it. So this is my one take on this experience of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I would have liked it to be less predictable. We knew that she was going to be the babysitter. We knew that she was going to try to ruin Caitlin's life in some type of way. We didn't know what way, but we knew that was going to happen. This movie basically paced out like a intense Lifetime movie with a bigger budget. At some point, Caitlin starts to sense that something's off, and that's pretty obvious or whatnot. And I shouldn't say sense, because Polly was giving the signs. Oh, Caitlin clearly told her about this breast milk versus formula situation because of sugar. And, Polly just overlooked that. And then there was this incident with some fireworks, and Caitlin's daughter, Emma, set the fireworks off in her room. And it's just like, oh my God, what are you thinking? And to just talk about that scene, most people are probably like me, and I'm very irritated with Miguel because your daughter was popping fireworks in her room enough to burn the house down. And you in turn get upset with your wife because she's basically kicking the nanny out because she's doesn't feel like at this time that her kids are being cared for. And when she comes to bed and asks you, are you basically upset with her? In the next scene, we see that she's at the hotel where the nanny is, slamming her head against the wall, basically bringing her back to the house. Miguel is the worst husband. He's the worst. He's probably one of the worst movie husbands I've ever seen. Miguel is trash. Miguel did not believe Caitlyn at any point in this movie until the very end, and we'll get to that shortly. But Miguel did not believe his wife at any point in this movie. And in the trailer, you'll see that there are some flirty scenes that they did not show in the movie. So they cut those out, but they gave us some flirty scenes in the trailer that were obviously cut, but they were obviously part of the movie at some point. So there was some flirty scenes. So we know that Polly and Miguel were probably flirting. There was this one scene where Polly and some girl that she was gonna, give the finger to in a different way. They were they were all sitting out by the fireplace while Caitlyn was out on the run, and messy, messy, messy. So at some point, this was all going to fall apart, and it does fall apart. And when it does fall apart and hits ahead, just like a Lifetime movie, we got our needless death, poor Stewart, and you may recognize him from Tulsa King. I can't think of his real name, but he's in Tulsa King as well. Stewart, who was one of Caitlyn's friends, he went to the home run derby. And at this point, the movie is basically unfolding and the cat is out of the bag, and except for with Miguel. Miguel doesn't know anything. He's still oblivious to everything. He thinks his wife is wrong and that she's just going crazy. But Caitlyn starts to figure out everything, that her meds were switched, that, but the one thing I didn't touch on with Caitlyn and the Polly. So the movie opens up with a house on fire. You've probably seen it in the trailer, but the movie opens up with a house on fire and a little girl standing outside. Honestly, that was a dead giveaway. I knew it was one or two people, but as the movie played out, I knew exactly who it was. And it was Polly standing outside of a burning house. Now you could get the impression that maybe Polly burned the house down. And this is a plot hole in my opinion. This is a plot hole because they never really say who burned the house down. They kind of imply that maybe it was Caitlyn, but they never really say this is who burned the house down. So I honestly think it's left up for debate because there was this exchange between Caitlyn and Polly in the kitchen where they, start talking about what led Caitlyn to potentially burn the house down was Polly's father was raping her. Apparently he was raping Polly too. He told Caitlyn about it. He was this nasty man, basically, but the house burned down. So who burned the house down is one of the two, but we don't know who. And it was kind of insinuated that it was Caitlyn, but we don't really know that it was Caitlyn because it could have been Polly because she's doing all this other crazy shit. So I'll just leave that there. And with that being said, like I said, at this point, Caitlyn's not living at the house anymore. Miguel has kicked her out because she's been going crazy with Polly. Like I said, there have been some flirty stuff going on, but Caitlyn behind the scenes has been putting things together. This is after Stewart was beat down and eventually died. Caitlyn's in a hotel. She knows that Polly was the last person that Stewart called, and she just wants to see her kids at this point. So she's at the ballpark with her kid. Her and her kids share the story, and her daughter and her now share their own little secret because secrets are of abundance in this movie, even though they're not very good secrets, but secrets nonetheless. So she pulls out this picture out of her bag that she took from Paula, and she says she stole it. And she showed it to her mom, and her mom clearly immediately recognizes this family photo and who this family is, and it's like ding, 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 damn. I know who Polly really is. And I knew there was something fishy about her, and nobody said any of this, but this is clearly what was going through her mind if we know what was going through her mind in that moment. Oh my God, I know who Polly is. So she leaves the park, goes back to the house. She confronts her by her real name, which I think is Jessica. And, the final battle happens. They fight, she gets stabbed. It was a good fight. The baby's upstairs crying, but, they eventually go upstairs and tend to her. And then this photo that we've seen with Polly holding a baby with blood on her does not happen either, or does it happen? No, it does not happen either. And if it does happen, please correct me, but I don't think that happens because it seems like it's outside. And if that would have happened, it would have been inside because, as you know, after the fight, Caitlyn gets her baby, gets in the car. Polly jumps on top of the car, starts going crazy, and boom, 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 back out into the street. Boom, slammed by a car, and then there's no more Polly. So, like I said, Polly is no more. Miguel is, oh my God, I saw her. So you finally believe your wife after somebody's on the hood of her car, smashing her windshield. Oh my God, I finally believe you. I finally believe you. I can't believe this happened. And yeah, like I said, Miguel is the worst movie husband ever. But basically months later, we're all a happy family again. You know, Pa's out of the picture, and or is she out of the picture? Because Emma's up in the bedroom reciting Polly's little weird bedtime story to her baby sister about, and then doing the whole thing. So is Polly out of their life? Physically, yes, but mentally, definitely not. But that's my instant reaction. That's my review. That's my breakdown of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I do think it was a very good movie. It stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Micah Monroe, and others. The biggest thing I took from this movie was beautifully shot, like a beautiful movie out in LA. It was filmed in LA. It was, the location was LA as well. Very well acted. The movie had good actors. Juan Castillo, who plays Miguel, great actor. He played the dumb husband very well. I did not like Miguel, so I guess he did his role the way he was supposed to because he really made me hate his character. So I'm not sure if that was the goal or was I supposed to sympathize with Miguel because judging by the trailer, he definitely was going to be at least a curious husband, if not a cheating husband. So I'm not sure if I was supposed to like Miguel or not, but I didn't like Miguel. And, this movie is like I said, your classic nanny from hell type movie. I'm not sure why people leave their kids with strangers type movie. I have some past trauma in my family and that needs to be taken care of, but it hasn't type movie. And I do recommend going to give it a watch. I think it was a good movie, solid hour and like 40 minutes. It does go up and down. So watch it when you're not tired, but good movie, solid 6 out of 10. That's just my personal opinion. You may give it a 9 or 10, depending on how you feel about certain movies. This is not a horror movie. This is not a horror movie. So hopefully Hulu reclassifies it or whatever. It's not even a psychological thriller. I would just give it just thriller and just leave it there. Drama thriller, something like that, because definitely not horror. But let me know what you guys think about the movie. If you've seen it already, drop a comment. Let me know what you thought about it. Let me know if you agree with me or disagree with me, or tell me what you think you liked about it, and maybe I'll agree with you because maybe I liked that part or didn't like that part. Because it's not that I hated this movie. It was just predictable. I knew everything that was going to happen, and the only thing that I really questioned was at the beginning of the movie, once they introduced Polly and Caitlyn, was which one of those two were standing in front of that burning house. And that was it. And that's the only thing I was really confused on. Outside of that, this movie played out exactly how I thought it would. And I'm not sure if that's because of the trailer or just because of how the movie was shot. Don't know. Or maybe that's how the first movie was because this was a re-imaging, not a remake. So it was probably similar to the first one, I assume. But let me know your thoughts. Those are my thoughts. That's my instant reaction and my very, very raw reactions because I saw this movie at this point maybe about 30 minutes ago. So I may do another review of this movie just to kind of let things simmer and chill, and maybe I'll have different thoughts, or maybe I'll watch it again because it is a pretty quick watch. And, maybe I'll pick out a few other things that maybe I missed that may make the movie better, or it could make it worse. But let me know what you guys think of the Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.